I was just a boy, 13 when we arrived in King Abdulaziz Airport, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, in the late 1970s, a time of staggering wealth, change, and untold adventure. I remember stepping off the plane, and the heat thick, salty, and warm like a heavy blanket hit me first. From the back seat of our car, I watched a city in motion, narrow alleys of coral stone buildings, their glass windows glinting under the Arabian sun. The call to prayer rose over the city, a voice drifting through the warm air like an ancient melody. And just like that, a new chapter of my life began. But my best memories, they came from the Red Sea. Once a month, when the tide was low, my parents took me on an adventure, a crab hunt in the Red Sea. I remember the journey down the coastline to get to our favorite hunting spot. We arrived after 45 minutes and there it was, the Red Sea at low tide, stretching so very far out. The smell of the sea was intense, the sand was soft as silk, the waves whispering secrets as they retreated into the horizon. My father carried a wooden crab spear, and in my small hands, I held a bucket, my heart racing with excitement. As we waded into the shallows, the water was cool against my ankles, and the sand beneath my feet shifted like a living thing. Tiny fish darted past, and in the distance, I spotted them, crabs. Their spindly legs moved sideways over the glistening seabed, their shells blending with the pebbles. The first time I caught one, I felt like a hunter, victorious and proud. The thrill of spearing my first crab sent a rush of excitement through me. We always returned home with a bucket full of fresh Red Sea crabs, their shells still wet from the salt water. The moment we stepped into the kitchen, my mother got to work. The scent of garlic, butter, and bay leaves filled the air as steam rose from the bubbling pot. That night, we feasted. The Arabs during that time did not eat crabs but mostly meat. To this day, no seafood has ever tasted as fresh, as perfect, as the crabs we caught with our own hands. A city of luxury where gas was cheaper than water, Jeddah in the 1970s was unlike anything else in the world. When I was there in 1979, the Arab country was in the midst of building infrastructure and expansion of its economy. By the late 1970s, Saudi Arabia was one of the richest countries in the world. The streets were lined with American muscle cars, their polished hoods reflecting the Arabian sun. Arabs were so rich that if something was wrong with the car, they would just abandon their car near the roadside. And their culture goes on till this very day. What was the real sign of Saudi wealth? Oil and the gas stations. I still remember standing beside my father at a petrol station, watching a man in a white thobe casually filling up his gold-trimmed Cadillac. The gas gushed out, overflowing, spilling onto the concrete. That was the norm. My father was a diplomat, and one evening, he came home with a story I'll never forget. He had met King Fahd, the custodian of the two holy mosques. He described the moment in vivid detail: the towering marble pillars of the royal palace, the shimmer of golden chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of oud and incense. My father, representing his country, to give his credential, stood before the king and offered his hand. Cameras flashed. The mischievous orange cat, a stray who taught me compassion, Picard, an orange tomcat with eyes like molten gold. The cat had a large head and thick neck but completely deaf. I discovered this by accident. No matter how loudly I called, he never turned. One day, I had an idea. I crept up behind him, silent as a shadow, and tapped his back. The cat leapt a foot into the air, his fur bristling in sheer terror. These are the memories that stay with me.